I am starting a series of whale shark interviews. It's really just about ordinary people that have built extraordinary wealth. And I have a perfect first guest.
I spent about a year doing commercial real estate, lived off of credit cards. I got burnt on a couple deals for the broker I was with, got a bad taste in my mouth. So my father's like, hey, listen, why don't you come to my business? We'll see if we could start a residential division. Well, the residential side was a whole different division. He didn't really take those jobs. If he'd get a call, maybe he would do one or two a year. We ran that company from 0 to 1.3 million year one, so it worked out really well.
It looks like 2009 to 2019 was kind of those hustle years. And there's something that switched around 2019 where you said, we need to focus. Let's build something that's going to be valuable here.
100%. And I was focused and I had one business. It was literally like I went from running 5, 6 multiple businesses at the same time, 70 employees, down to 14 employees and one business. And you're right, I made more money in that time period than I ever did the whole previous 10 years. Like, it was unbelievable.
For those that want to kind of avoid the 10 years of hustle and pain and really kind of go from the beginning with that focus, could you give us like top tips that helped you turn that corner mentally?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I would say is,
all right, welcome to my show. This is Clint Fiore, your host. I am starting a series of whale shark interviews. You probably saw my first video where I explained the concept of whale sharks and how it's really just about ordinary people that have built extraordinary wealth through multiple small businesses, either through startups, acquisitions, buying and holding and selling small businesses as kind of serial startups and serial acquirers. And I have a perfect first guest to kick off my interview series with whale sharks, and that's Teddy Slack. And Teddy, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us, man.
No, I appreciate it, Clint, and really looking forward to this. And I love what you're doing in the space. The whole DLM software you got going on I think it's an awesome idea, and I'm excited to get this going, man. It's awesome.
Cool, man. Well, hopefully we can do some deals with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you get going with Dealonomy and everything else. But man, so you're about my age. You're 44.
Yep.
You've started a bunch of businesses. You've bought 3 businesses along the way. I've got a few notes here on you, and you've the punchline is you went from $8,000 in your pocket in 2009 to now an 8-figure net worth via this multiple startups and acquisition strategies you've done over the past 16 years now.
Yep.
15, 16 years. And so that's a remarkable outcome and a remarkable, journey you've been on. But I just want to kind of start at the beginning and say, like, how in the world did you get into this serial entrepreneurship and acquisition space, and what were you doing before 2009?
So I started out in a family business. So I grew up, I'm third generation. My grandfather was in the topsoil oil tank business as well. And, growing up as a young kid, my father would take me and put me on the job site as a little boy. And, if there was days off of school, I wasn't allowed to stay home and play with my friends. He'd bring me to the job and stick me on the job site and tell the foreman, hey, keep an eye on my kid, and that started at like 5, 6 years old. So I was always working out in the field all the way up through high school and through college. And then after college, I went to school for business, marketing, and management, which, to be honest, I didn't learn anything that was applicable in the real world in college, unfortunately. But once I got out in the real world, I spent about a year doing commercial real estate, which, how that is 100% commission. I did that for about a year, lived off of credit cards. I got burnt on a couple deals for the broker I was with, got a bad taste in my mouth. So my father's like, hey, listen, why don't you come to my business? We'll see if we could start a residential division. So at that time, he was doing all commercial environmental work. So big tanks, like 10,000 gallons, 20,000 gallons, and then he would do the environmental cleanups. Well, the residential side was a whole different division. He didn't really take those jobs. If he'd get a call, maybe he would do one or two a year. So he's like, you could start a new company. You could do the branding, start the website. If you could figure it out and get the phone in the ring, then we'll start something up real slowly. So that's what I did in 2005. I started that division. It was called Tank Solutions. We ran that company from 0 to 1.3 million year one. So it worked out really well. And I did that pretty much off of, at that time, it was like Yellow Pages. I mean, it was like crazy what we were doing back then. It was like so early on. But we grew that business for the next 5 years. And then, unfortunately, it was a family business. My mother was part of the business. Unfortunately, she passed away. So, things got tough in the family business. My father and I, we just didn't see eye to eye. My father's very old school, and we just kind of came to heads. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go off on my own. And that's exactly what happened in 2009. I went off on my own and started my own residential oil tank business. And same thing, that from day one, I mean, I already done it one time, so it was easy to repeat it. And that thing took off like crazy in 2009.
So for those that don't know, residential oil tanks, like what is that? Like what do you exactly do?
Yeah, so it's a very niche industry in the Northeast, but specifically in New Jersey, the laws are really hard. So the DEP in New Jersey, they're really strict. So if you have an oil tank in your home in the Northeast, like it basically what it is a steel tank in the ground, and it holds your oil, so you could heat your house. And a lot of times, these tanks were put in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they were just a thin piece of steel. Well, they corrode over the last, 50, 60, 70 years. They're like basically Swiss cheese. So that oil now seeps into the ground. Well, if you have a real estate transaction in New Jersey and you want to sell your home, it's like dealing with a mold situation or a bad roof or a bad septic. You have to do the oil. You have to remove the oil tank, and you have to do the environmental cleanup. And these cleanups can range anywhere from 10 grand to upwards of six figures, depending on how long they were leaking. So it's a very niche industry, and it's really big in the Northeast, specifically in New Jersey, because of the laws of how strict they are.
Okay, thanks for that. We don't have those here, so
Yeah,
that's not
no.
even a niche
Yeah.
I was aware of, and that's just something that constantly fascinates me about small businesses. I've been doing deals for 10 years, seen thousands of businesses, and you're the first one that's told me about that one. So
Yes, it's very niche. Yeah.
very, very neat, man. So you got that going and blowing up, and tell me about kind of the trend that set in there. Like how fast did you grow it, and then did you ultimately sell that one, or what happened?
Yeah, so unfortunately, when I left, I did leave on bad terms with my father. I mean, him and I are closer than we've ever been now, but back then it was not good. We were not on good terms. It's bad blood. So I left, and I had not a lot of money. I mean, at the time I was a young kid. I mean, yeah, I was getting paid six figures, but I was young. I was, spending all my money, not saving anything. So I had about $8,000 to my name, and I had to go start this business that needed almost $1 million in equipment. I needed heavy excavators, I needed dump trucks, I needed service trucks, I needed trailers. So it was a lot of equipment. It was very intensive, heavy equipment. And I was able to stretch that $8,000 to get to my first job, which wound up being about 10, 15 grand. And then I just start rolling it very slowly. And, I started out with myself and my cousin. I brought a cousin on part-time. So I just very bootstrapped that company. Like,
were you just renting equipment on that first job?
Yes,
How'd you get it done?
That's exactly what I did. So I got my trailer was a 0% financing. So I need to put a small amount of money on that. I had to put $4,000 down on my dump truck. That was like the majority of the money. And then, every day I would rent equipment. So I'd go to the rental place, I'd rent equipment, and I'd drop it off by the end of the day because I didn't have jobs back to back. So I'd have like 2 jobs a week, And then eventually one of those jobs turned into a leaker, and then it started to roll. And at that time, I was hitting the doors. I was door knocking. I was going to everybody I can. I was offering free tank sweep services, which is it's typically like a $250 service. But I told all the realtors, I was like, listen, I'll do it for free because I just want to get my name out there. And then if I find a tank, then hopefully you'll hire me to remove it. And, so that's how kind of slowly built up. And it just took off like crazy. And unfortunately, because it took off so fast, and this is, I would tell your listeners, like it got to my head. Now, I was a young kid. I was 28 years old. I just built now my second service business from 0 to 7 figures in the first 12 months. And I'm like, this is so easy. I'm this like whiz kid. I could do this with anything. And unfortunately, I start to go in a lot of different directions back then. And that's when I started opening up different companies, but I was running them all simultaneously. And it was a major mistake that I made back at that time for sure,
Yeah, so you started launching other service businesses kind of in your youthful exuberance.
Yes.
And what other businesses did you launch?
So I started a emergency response business. It was a hazmat emergency response. So if a truck flips over on the side of the road and there's hazardous materials inside the truck, we would send out a crew of guys to go out there and clean it up. Or if you had an accident in a warehouse, we'd go out to your warehouse and clean up the spill, whether that's glue or caustic or whatever it was. Could be gasoline, could be oil. And that was a 24 hours emergency response team that I built up with a guy that was working for me at the time, and he had experience in the industry. So he came to me, he's like, listen, you're successful in this tank business. Why don't you back me in this. I'll do all the operations, you do all the business back end of it, and we'll kind of do it together. And that's what I did. And that thing, same thing, we bootstrapped it. I bought some cheap trucks and we just got our name out there. And that thing went to like 2 million in revenue in the first, 15 months. So that was pretty successful right away. So now I was running these two companies simultaneously. And at the same time, this is where I start to buy some of my competitors in the tank business. So I don't know if you want to dive into that and kind of how I started doing that.
So you're still in the tank business.
Yep.
And then how did buying your competitors get on your radar? Like, are you, do you have some knowledge about acquisitions? You just stumble across these opportunities, or like how did those come about?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I was 28, 29 years old, I was a young kid. I had no experience. I didn't read any books at this time. This was just grit and hustle. This is what I learned from my father, just work hard and essentially just get in front of the right people. So the first deal actually came out pretty quick. So I started my company in 2009 in October. In like early 2010, I was approached by one of my competitors' sales rep. Now, this guy came to me. He's like, listen, we're in trouble. This is one of my competitors. Now, they were just sold about 3 years prior. They sold for an all cash deal to these corporate guys. So now these corporate guys, they had no experience in the business, but they just literally stroked the check. No SBA loan or nothing. Like $2 million. They bought one of my competitors out, but they had no experience. And they came into the business and they started hiring all these high level management guys. And they were in a massive company. They were probably doing 2.5 million in revenue. And they started putting these like layers of management, and they were paying them six figures, and they got themselves in a lot of trouble where they couldn't pay their vendors. So the cash flow wasn't there, and they just didn't know how to operationally run it. So the sales rep, who at the time, I was doing all the sales in my business. I was small at this point. He came to me and says, will you hire me? I'm like, well, how much are they paying you? He's like, oh, they're paying me $130,000. I'm like, that was like mind blowing to me back then. Yeah. I'm like, 130 grand for a salesman. I'm like, I own the company. I don't even think I'm taking that. Like, so I'm like, I can't afford you. But then he's like, well, maybe we could do a deal. Let's talk to the owners. So I wound up meeting with those owners at the time, and they wanted $700,000 for the business. And now again, I had no clue how to buy a business. I don't know how to value a company or nothing, but I was like, let me look at this, and see if there's something I could do here. Long story short, I worked a deal with them because I figured out that they were in a lot of trouble. They took a lot of deposit money from their clients, and they couldn't finish the jobs. They were about to get sued by almost a dozen clients, and they were really scared. They're like, we're going to be in all these lawsuits. I don't want to be locked into all these lawsuits. And, what if you take over these jobs? And I'm like, all right, I'll make a deal with you. I'm like, I don't want to buy your property. I don't want the equipment. The equipment was really garbage. I'm like, I'll take over your jobs that you took the deposits on, but in return, I want your phone number. And that was the first deal I did. I took control of their phone number. That was the best asset they had. And I took over their jobs. I finished them for basically break even. So it was like a wash for me. And then that number just started ringing, and I just kept taking the phone. And then I had a script I put together for my office staff, and we were just off to the bit races and just taking that number. They were in business for 20 years. So that number kept ringing,
So you say, hey, XYZ company is now part of ABC company. Yes. Thanks for calling. And, we want to take great care of you. You have that script, and you're
exactly
just sucking up their customers as you go.
Exactly. So it was a win-win for them because they got to sell their equipment to somebody else who bought the equipment. They sold off their property, and then I took the phone number and I took care of their clients so they didn't get sued. So it was a win-win for everybody,
Yeah. So they took an L on that acquisition, but they avoided lawsuits, and they were able to avoid, some of the worst pain they could have done because of your relationship there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So found a win-win deal opportunistically. It just fell in your lap through a salesperson.
Exactly. Yeah. No experience, but I was able to manage that and negotiate it, and it worked out. And that worked out really well for me at that time.
So your show notes say you've done 3 acquisitions. Were those all in the same industry, or did you do them in other industries?
All in the same industry. So the next deal came about a year later, 2011. I get a knock on my office, and it was one of my competitors. He was an older gentleman. At the time, he was going through a divorce, and he was not a very big company. They were probably $400,000 in revenue, and at that time, we were close to $2 million in revenue. So he was smaller than us, and he's like, "Listen, I want to sell my company. I'm going through divorce. I just want out of the business." And he was kind of like, I don't want to say a one-man show, but he had like part-time employees and one girl in the office. And he's like, would you buy my business? I'm like, well, I don't know how to evaluate a business. I don't even know what it's worth. But I just did this other deal. I'm like, maybe we could do a deal. Let's sit down and talk. How can we structure this where it makes sense? I don't have a ton of cash to pay you. you. I'm like, but I'm interested in your phone number because I just did this other deal and it worked out really well. So wind up sitting with him. And what happened, the way I structured it with him was, he's like, I don't want any of the responsibilities of the fulfillment. I just want to stay on as a sales rep. He's like, I will control the number. I'll take the calls. I'll sell them, but I want to hand it off to your office and your crew to do the work. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. So we worked a deal where I paid him off the top line revenue. It was like, half of the profit at the time was about 30%. So I paid him 15% off top line over a 5-year period. So he only got paid if he sold jobs. And for me, it was great because I was like, revenue's coming in. I'm only paying you if you bring in revenue off of your phone number. And I structured that deal over a 5-year period. And then I own the number forever. That number still rings in the business today.
Okay, so right up front, you said this is my phone number at year 5, but the next 5 years, you're going to get 15% of the revenue.
I took control of the number and I forwarded the number to my office year 1, like right from the beginning, in case something, you know what I mean? So, and then, he stayed on board with me and he was the sales rep for his phone number essentially. And he did it remotely, which he was happy. So it worked out for him because he had no other responsibilities. He got rid of all his equipment, same thing. And we still are in a good relationship now. I mean,
did you go all 5 years with him and did that work out?
Yeah, we did. And then we actually winded up doing a deal together down the road in 2018. But I'm very good friends with him still to this day.
That's amazing. You know, like so many times when a business owner sells to another business owner, small business people, they just aren't able to make it as bedfellows on the other side of the deal because entrepreneurs are fiercely independent. You know, we're very used to calling our own shots and we're hard to work with, hard to work for sometimes. And so that's a testament of your team player win-win attitude, man, that you were able to make it work with him for 5 years and still have a good relationship. So that's awesome, man. So tell me about deal 3. What was the third one?
So deal 3 was actually the most recent deal. I did that after I exited my business. So, I mean, we could get into that, but if you want, I could talk about 2018. I actually kind of restructured after like I said, I launched 8 businesses in like a 10-year period, which was absolutely insane. And I tried to run them simultaneously, which is a piece of advice. Definitely don't do that. One of the main things that I learned over my first 10 years of being an entrepreneur is focus. That is the biggest thing I always tell my clients that I speak to today that I coach is like focus. When I focused and dialed in on one business, I was able to really scale it up and build it for value purposes. It changed my whole life. In the beginning, my first 10 years, it was all hustle mentality. It was just like, I was wearing a lot of hats in all these businesses. I was trying to manage it all myself. And at one point I had 70 employees across all these companies, but I still was involved with way too many things. I didn't know how to delegate. I didn't know how to build for value purposes. I was chasing top line revenue. Like, I'm going to go over here and make this money. I'm going to do this as well. And I was day trading Bitcoin. I mean, I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which was taking a lot of my like time in my head, like you don't have that much time. You only have so much time in the day. And if you're not delegating properly and getting yourself out of the day to day, you could get yourself in a jam. And that's exactly what happened to me,
Yeah. Awesome, man. So so out of all these businesses, how many of them were the tank businesses versus the other?
So, let's see. So I had Tank Solutions, Qualified, and then 3 acquisitions. So about six tank businesses that, throughout the last 20 years.
Okay. So 6 out of the 10 or so were kind of rolled up into one. Did you kind of make one super entity where you were gobbling up these other ones and starting out other tank businesses? And was it all under one?
Yeah, so essentially in 2018, when I basically said, I'm going back to my core business, the tank business, which was always profitable from day one. The problem I had was I took that balance sheet and I tried to use it to go start other companies. Huge mistake. Definitely don't recommend anybody do that. And that's what I was doing. And so now I was like, I'm going back to the core business. We're going to get back into the tank business, to just focus on the tanks. And that's exactly what we did. And with the intention of exiting in a 3 to 5 year period. So we always were going to exit. That was our intention. So we kept our book super clean. We set it up. And this is when I started reading a lot of books, started educating myself about exiting a business and building for value purposes. I was able to get myself out of the day to day. For the last 2 years of that business, I didn't have to show up to the office at all. And it just kept growing. So I set it up correctly. And super focused. I was able to launch a YouTube channel for that business. I did a lot of things that was outside of the norm in that industry. And we grew from basically 0 to 4 million in like 36 months. And I exited by the end of year 3. For 5 times multiple, and our profit margins were the highest they ever were since I was in that business since 2005. I was able to get it to that point because I was focusing on it,
So was that deal roughly what, $3, $4, $5 million deal.
It was 7.6 million was the sale price on it, because it was 1.6 million in profit. We were 43% basically EBITDA, or seller's discretionary earnings.
Holy
You know,
cow.
it was very profitable. I changed the entire industry around though. Like, so to give you context, like in that business, the way it works is you get a quote. Homeowner would call and say, I have an oil tank. And they'd say, all right, it's $1,200 plus, depending on what we find, because it's underground. We don't know what it's going to be. So that's a scary thought for a lot of homeowners, because they're like, well, is this going to be 3,000 or 1,000? They don't know, right? That's number one. And then number two, when the tank leaks, they tell you, well, here's the starting price. It's like 8,000, and then it goes up from there. It could be 100 grand. You don't know. So that's a very scary thought for a homeowner to sign a contract with you, because they're like, I'm signing an $8,000 contract, but the invoice could be 100 grand or 50 grand. So it's very scary process. So after like really reading a lot of books and figuring this stuff out, I'm like, I have to come up with an offer. And this is why I love Deal on Me, because I think you did the same thing. Like you came up with an offer that's like nobody else in the industry is offering it. Like it's so far out, it's so out there that they can't compete with nobody. They can't price shop you. It's like literally this is the only thing on the market. And basically what it was is flat rate pricing in the industry. And nobody, even to this day, is doing what I offered back then. And it changed my whole business around, because it made it easy to sell, and my profit margins went through the roof, and the customers loved it. So everybody was happy. It was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, it sounds like you did this before Hormozy dropped his $100 million offer book, but that was the one that kind of like hit me right between the eyes of like, I got to have a better offer. I got to differentiate myself. And yeah, you're right. That was kind of the basis behind deciding to go big and raise money and all that with Dealonomy, was that same epiphany. So you had that epiphany, made this home run offer, grew super fast, just high margin, higher than normal margin in your industry, built it, clean books, intending to sell, and you did it. You sold for 7.6 mil. So congrats, hats off to you. That was in 2019.
Well, no, we exited in 22. So,
Or
and then
22.
that's
so
when
recently.
Yeah, so that's when the third acquisition actually came after. So after I was consulting with the buyer, and I still consult with them, I talk to them, pretty often, but it was about 6 months after the exit. So during the process of building that company, I put a process together where I was reaching out to my competition, because I was like, you know what, they see what I'm doing online. I want to start just sending them letters and just making friends essentially with my competition. Hey, I'm looking to partner with you guys if you're ever looking to get out of the business, because I had these successful deals that I did earlier. So I started putting together a system where I would reach out to them. And it doesn't happen often. It didn't happen like quick. It wasn't like they got the letter and called me right away. But what happened was, after we closed, one of the competitors called the buyer and was like, hey, I got this letter like 6 months ago. I'm interested in talking to you guys. So the buyer's like, he didn't know. He's a younger kid. He called me up. He's like, what should I do? I'm like, I'll come and I'll negotiate the deal. Let's go. So we met with the guy. And same thing. So he bought into this industry, no experience. He was in the ice business. So he went from the ice business to try to go into the tank business with no experience. And it's a very intricate business, because it's, number one, you need township permits. There's over 500 towns in New Jersey. Each town has their own rules with permits. That's number one. And number two, you're dealing with the state, with the DEP. And you have to put like a 300-page report together at the end of the cleanup. So it's very intricate. It's not like you just have to sell it and then fulfill it. It's like you have all this documentation, all these laws and licenses and reporting. So he had a hard time running the business, and he's like, listen, I bought this business. It's been around for 30 years. I'm running it into the ground. Essentially, I can't deal with the customers. They're a pain in the neck. Like, it's too much paperwork. He's like, take the phone numbers. That's all I want you to do, is take the phone number. I'm like, well, how much do you want for it? I figured he was going to want, 100, 200, 300 grand. He's like, I'll sell it to you. He's like, just take it off my hands. I'll give it to you for $7,000. I'm like, $7,000. I told the kid, I'm like, if you don't buy this $7,000, I'm going to buy the number. I'm like, I'll sell you back the leads. I'm like, this is an amazing deal. So essentially we wind up buying his phone number for $7,000. We got control of his Google My Business page, his website. So it was an amazing deal for us. And, it was doing about $300,000 in revenue, from day one, that phone number.
So, okay. So $300,000 in revenue at the margins you're running was what, 100+ thousand of profit.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, he didn't know what he had, unfortunately. I mean, and, I let him name it. I didn't make him a low offer. I said, what do you want for the number? And again, I thought he was going to say, at least we were figuring like 200,000 or 150,000. We were expecting that. And he came back and said, just give me $7,000, get it off my plate, take over my customers. I'm like, yeah, let's go,
Yeah. And so, when you translate that into your exit multiple, I mean, like you may have just added, $600,000-700,000 of business value for that $7,000.
And all it took was that was literally a letter to all my competitors. I put together a list of every competitor in my area, and I sent them a letter just saying, "Hey, I'm looking to maybe partner, seeing if everybody's interested. I've done a couple partnerships in the past. Really just kind of just real easy, just a letter, just and not like chasing them, not following up with them, just like just hey, I'm out here." And it sat in that guy's desk for a couple of months to the point where he was like ready to just pull his hair out, and he was ready. He's like, "I'm out." He's like, "I got your letter a few months back."
Yeah,
and then that deal actually happened after the exit. So like I said, I went back. I was consulting with the kid, and I wanted to help him out. I still talk to him. I'm very friendly with the buyer. He was actually a junior partner, so we structured the deal. He got an SBA loan. We maxed the SBA loan out, plus a little bit of a seller note in the back end, and that's how we did that deal. But yeah, I still speak to him every day. The kid, he's a nice kid. He's a young kid, and I help him and consult with him.
Did you figure out a way to make some money on that deal after the sale?
Yeah, he took care of me. He definitely took care of me, and like I said, we're still friendly.
Awesome.
And he probably wouldn't have put the deal together if I didn't come back, but it was definitely worth it, 100%. And it's a strategy that even today I'm interested in continuing that strategy.
Okay, so I want to do a little teachable moment here for the audience that's listening. And Teddy, just jump in and tell me if this is on the money or not. All right. So this whale shark metaphor works at so many levels. Whale sharks in the ocean get bigger than any other shark. And one of the ways they do that is because they're eating plankton. And so you think of like the great white. People, if you just like pull someone off the street and say, "What's the biggest shark?" they often think of the great white shark, but it's not. The whale shark's bigger. And the great white is this ferocious hunter. It gets bloody, takes down these big these big creatures. But the whale shark is so chill, and it gets bigger off of plankton, right? And when I think about your business, I'm like, some of these deals, those are like the plankton deals, right? Like a $7K deal,
yep, that
ends up making you hundreds of thousands of dollars is a deal that only a whale shark can do. And it's because you're in the game. And so I'm trying to put the pieces together. Like, how can people take actionable insights out of this? The first takeaway I got is get in the game, people. So like get a foundation of a business that whether you start it or buy it, that puts food on the table, that takes care of your family, so you can become a known expert in your space. And that's what Teddy did here. So he started his business, he got going, but then he did some unorthodox things not everybody does. He made friends with his competitors. He made a YouTube channel. He put himself out there as the guy in this space and became known. He sent out those letters, and some of them sat around for months on people's desks, but eventually they came back. And so when you're a known entity and people know you exist in this space, in this industry, opportunities pop up. And even if they're small to where like it wouldn't be the first deal you could have done, but once you already have that machinery in place and you've got the system going, you can take on those small deals and really turn them into gold because of what you've already built and put in place. And so is that fair? Like that analogy, and kind of part of your success was doing those kind of plankton kind of deals?
That's 100% exactly. And it's all about getting yourself out there and just, and putting the right process in place. Like you said, you have the right systems in place, in order to tuck those numbers in. You have to have the right script for your people in the office that know how to handle those calls. And you're going to get calls that are like, wait, who? I'm used to dealing with John, and I want to deal, and you have to be able to handle that and work your way through that. But it's not hard, these deals weren't hard to put together. And the first two, I had no clue how to buy business, value business, or anything. The last one I did, but the first two, I had no clue. I just was willing to speak to my competitors, and I was willing to hear them out to find out what they're looking for and what they were in trouble with. Essentially, is like, how can I help you? How can I help solve your problems? You're about to go through all these lawsuits. Well, I'll take over these. A lot of guys would say, why would I take over jobs that I'm not going to make any money on? I took over a dozen jobs that had basically no profit, but in return, I got a phone number. So it's like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't lose money on those jobs. I basically broke even, but in return, I got a phone number. So it was a win-win for everybody. It's all about you being creative, right?
Yeah.
You have to be creative, think outside the box. How can you structure a deal? It's not about going getting an SBA loan. You don't need an SBA loan every time. You could structure these deals with, I did all mine with no money. So like, you don't need, the last one's $7,000 if you want to consider that money, but like, there's no SBA loans. There was no, nothing. And really, it was just me being out there, putting myself out there. And like you said, you just, being the guy in the industry, you know?
You know what else it makes me think of is this analogy of, you've said in these various deals, especially like the first one that was distressed, the equipment was no good, there was all these issues, but the phone number was good, and you were able to identify what you want and what you don't want. And the analogy I like is like an asset sale opportunistic buyer. You know the difference between the red part of the watermelon and the green part of the watermelon, right?
Yep.
And so I think like that's a skill you've developed, and that just comes through experience. It comes from operations. So when you're in the game and people come to you and say, "Hey, I want you to exit. I want you to help me exit." Like they're trying to sell you the whole watermelon. They're trying to sell you the green part, the rotten part, and you just want the juicy red part, right? And so they're going to try to like assign value to the green part. They're going to try to assign value and work a deal that's to their advantage. But Teddy seems very disciplined to me. I'm like, no, I know exactly the part I want. I want that red part, and how much for the red part, and do whatever you want with the green part. And is that fair?
Absolutely. And to be, it's crazy part about it is like in the beginning, those first two deals, I wasn't 100%. I knew the phone number was valuable, but I didn't understand like even the website I could have got control of. I didn't do that in the first two deals. The last deal I did, I took control of their website. I rebranded it. I kept the brand the same, but I redid the whole site. I explained on the site that they were bought out by our company and now we're merged together and we're going to take care of you. So like I put the whole thing together on their site. So I would keep that site alive because I knew it was going to generate leads. And then also took control of their Google My Business page, which I didn't do for the first deals. So I would have done that back then too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so the assets became, I know what assets are valuable, like you said. And and those are what drives the phone number. You know what I mean? That's what's making that phone number ring,
So what's life been like for you these last couple years after the big sale? So, you got life-changing money from the big sale. You're obviously still young. You're 44, full of energy, still passionate about business. Like, what are you up to nowadays? And are you still doing deals, or like, what's your world like today?
Yeah, so I took some time off, spent it with the family. I actually got into flying. I see that you're into flying as well. I put about 30 hours into that, which was cool. I did that like right after the exit, just to like keep myself busy and get into a new hobby, and so I did that for a little bit. And then, I've done some consulting on the side locally with, people that I know inside of my network. And then recently I started putting out content and I'm trying to build up, more of a coaching, more of I would say not really coaching business because I don't want to scale coaching business. It's not really what I want to do. But I love talking to other home service business owners about growing their companies, how to make it more efficient, how to get themselves out of the day to day. Exactly what I did, because in the first 15 years, I just ran by hustle, and I was involved. I was operating heavy equipment. I had a CDL. I was driving dump trucks every day. I just did it, but I didn't do it the right way. And then when I read and I learned about how to operate a business for value purposes, it changed my whole life. It really did. I fell in love with the business again. I was able to concentrate on things that I was good at, that I love doing, like, the YouTube channel and the sales, like stuff that I like to do. I was able to do it. And then eventually I got myself out of the day to day. So now I like giving that to other business owners. Like, here, follow this path. I can help you do that as well. But I don't really want to scale that up. It's just like something I'm doing as like a passion project to help, a few clients. My main thing I'm working on right now is I'm doing a really deep dive into the roofing industry. And I'm looking to do same type of play inside the roofing industry, residential retail roofing inside of New Jersey. There's a couple of big players that were bought out by PE, but for the most part, it's mainly fragmented in the area that I live in. And I'm very interested in getting involved in that industry. So I'm going to be doing an outreach soon to them and start marketing to them and, looking to either grow and do a roll up there, or maybe even just start from scratch. That's something I'm entertaining right now.
I've got two really nice roofing companies for sale. Neither in New Jersey, but I got a Missouri and a Florida on the market right now. So if you know anybody that wants to partner with you on one of those, hit me up.
I mean, I have a pretty big roofer who's in Jersey. He might be interested in the Florida market.
I'm getting excited about the roofing industry. I feel like there's so much opportunity there, and so I'm glad you found it and are getting into it. Super cool. So, to me, just looking back at this timeline, it looks like 2009 to 2019 was kind of those hustle years where you're taking your lumps, learning how this, you're just hustling, blowing and going, starting stuff, breaking stuff. But your business kind of owns you, and all those 100%. Businesses kind of own you. And there's something that switched around 2019 where you said, we need to focus and let's build something that's going to be valuable here. And then all of a sudden you went to like owning your business and really taking things to the next level. And it sounds like those 3 years, from 2019 to 2022, you probably made more money, had more fun than you did in the previous 10 hustle,
100%. And I was focused and I had one business. It was literally like I went from running 5, 6 multiple businesses at the same time, 70 employees down to 14 employees and one business. And you're right, I made more money in that time period than I ever did the whole previous 10 years. Like it was unbelievable what I was able to do when I actually focused and again, enjoyed it because it didn't depend on me. I didn't have to show up. If I didn't show up, the job still got done. The sales still got done. The marketing got done. Yeah. So it was a lot more enjoyable business. And that's why I love teaching other guys, listen, you have to do this. It's life changing. Once you figure this out, it was like a different world was opened up to. He's like, ooh, check this out. There's a whole nother way to run a business. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
I hope the listeners and watchers really let that sink in. You made more money with 14 employees than you did with 70. And like so many people, employees are their biggest point of frustration, and it's like you need them to grow and scale, but man, being able to do more with less is heaven for an entrepreneur, and you were able to strike that gold in those 3 years when you really brought that focus. So let's land the plane here soon, Teddy. For those that want to kind of avoid the 10 years of hustle and pain and really kind of go from the beginning with that focus to get that 3-year span of results where you started again from zero, ended up with a $7-8 million exit. What's the top takeaways? Could you give us like top tips that helped you turn that corner mentally? And then also maybe you said you started reading some books in that area. You got any books you could share with us as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I would say is start educating yourself on how to grow a business for value purposes, right? So what do buyers want? What makes a business valuable? Start learning about that. And then when you start implementing those things, that's where you're going to start getting yourself out of the day-to-day. That's where you're going to start putting systems and processes in place. That's where you're going to really concentrate on the gross margins, not top line revenue, because top line revenue is something I chased for the first 10 years or so. And it is definitely not the thing you need to be chasing. I mean, I really dialed in my margins, and that's how I was able to get a 43% EBITDA. And again, that was my add back of my compensation because I wasn't involved in the day to day. So if I was involved, that would have got put back into the valuation. So that helped build the valuation up. So the main things I would say is learn how to build a company for value purposes and just go deep on that subject and learn everything you can. I read Built to Sell by John Warrillow. That was a book that really changed my life.
I love that one.
I would say that book changed my life back then. And then for finance, what changed my life about, the profits and stuff like that, Simple Numbers by Crabtree.
Oh, great book.
I love that book. So that helped me really try to focus. That helps with labor efficiency and your margins where they should be. And, it just really changed my focus on bottom line, not top line. And when you do that and you really think about, okay, well, how can I make this business more efficient so I could squeeze more money out of it? And that's where you really start to increase the value because now you have a bottom line. And the way I set it up, I mean, I was able to get a 5 times multiple. And at my size, that's back in 22, it wasn't really typical, especially in a niche industry. I mean, guys would trade at 3.5 times, like the guys who sold in my business, my industry. But I was able to get 5 times because of all the systems, the processes, and the high profitability and everything I had. I mean, I had a playbook for every process in that business where if you need to file a permit, you could go to my online course and it was a video of me on screen recording showing you step by step on how to file a permit. I mean, every process in that business had a video attached to it. So the bankers came in, they looked at my stuff. They were like, guys at your size don't really have all this. They're like, this is amazing. But it was because I educated myself and I knew what these guys were going to look for when they were coming to buy the business. And that changed my life for sure.
Yeah, you can absolutely get an extra turn or two of multiple if you build with that exit in mind and,
Yep.
and check all those check boxes. Just imagine you're the buyer, build the dream business for them,
Yes.
and that means those playbooks are in place, the people are in place, the processes, the unusually high margins, their unique sales pitch that's differentiated, and
Yep.
as much intellectual property protection as you can get, and everything, all that plays into the comfort level a buyer will have in paying a higher multiple. So super cool stuff, man. Man, this has been great. I could keep talking to you forever, but in interest of time, I think we should probably wrap it up here. If folks want to get in touch with you and reach out, hear more of your story, maybe learn from you, like what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Right now, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and X. Those are the two platforms I'm most active on. So you can find me there, or even YouTube. I just launched a new YouTube channel around my personal brand of, to just kind of get my voice out there about, business and coaching and hopefully networking with some roofing companies in the future. So that's kind of where I'm at now. So you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Teddy, super appreciate it. Going from $8,000 to an 8-figure net worth in 15 short years, and that's what I want to emphasize to all of you is like, none of this is an overnight success thing.
No.
But for normal people, it takes you 50 years to ever sniff an 8-figure net worth. If you're being really disciplined and you're making a high income and you're really saving and really investing. But entrepreneurship, you can't do it overnight. But if you do it smart, you can do it in 3, 5, 10, 15 years. And wouldn't that be worth it, to really focus and figure out that acquisition strategy that's going to work for you, and to master a niche and a strategy. So Teddy, super enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on the show. If you'll need to get a hold of him, you know how to do that. We'll put it in the notes, but we'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks, Clint. Appreciate it.
All right.